Hello everyone, my name is Leo Amendolia, and today I'll be talking about how constitutional politics shaped the Vietnam War. This war was not only about fighting on the battlefield, it was also a struggle over legitimacy, state power, and which government had the right to represent Vietnam. The conflict between North and South Vietnam was deeply tied to the political systems, the constitutions, and the countries that supported them. Constitutional politics as the foundation of the Vietnam War. Vietnam's battle during the Vietnam War showcases how constitutional politics shaped the country's course of conflict, foreign involvement, and reunification. The war was just not a military conflict, but a battle over legitimacy, state formation, and the future of politics in Vietnam. Cold War geopolitics and the formation of rival Vietnamese states. Since the 20th century, Vietnam has persisted the center of most significant geopolitical battles of the modern era. The Cold War changed Vietnam from a prior French colony to a symbolic war zone where different ideological, constitutional, and political visions fought one another. After the 1954 Geneva Accords divided the country into two rival governments, each claiming to be the main legitimate representative of the Vietnamese people. The Democratic Republic of Vietnam was supported by the Soviet Union and China and accepted a socialist one-party system developed in radical nationalism. The Republic of Vietnam was supported by the United States and formed an anti-communist Republican form of government, but had issues to create political cohesion and institutional authority. The Vietnam War was not just a simple military issue, rather it was a fight between rivaling constitutional orders, each trying to change the future of the Vietnam. North Vietnam's constitutional framework and political conciliation. The foundation of the Vietnam War starts in the fall of French colonial rule in Indochina and the emergence of rival ideas for Vietnam's political future of its country. After decades of nationalist resistance, the French strategically defeated at the Battle of Dien Phu in 1954, stopping a century of colonial domination. The following Geneva Accords created a short division of Vietnam across the 17th parallel, with the knowledge that national elections would be done in 2 years to unify the country. In reality, this agreement made two different distinct political systems, each supposing to be claiming legitimacy over the whole nation. In the north, the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh and Vietnamese work parties, created a socialist one-party state. The government put in action land reforms, centralized political power, and initialized industries, promoting an ideal national independence linked with communist views. This system of policies focused on social cohesion and deployment, supplying a single constitutional framework that enabled North Vietnam to unify power and prepare for battle. This strategic system changed American choices regarding South Vietnam's leadership. By supplying military and financial help and not directly reforming the political system, the United States accidentally reinforced all pre-existing weakened state of the Republic of Vietnam, leaving it dependent on other countries and vulnerable to an internal conflict. Therefore, the Cold War directive to stop communism directly changed the constitutional and government environment in South Vietnam, showing the crossing of foreign policy and internal political change. South Vietnam's struggle for legitimacy and structural weakness. In opposition, South Vietnam created an unstable, anti-communist Republican government through the leadership of Nha Dien Diem. Although Diem was able to achieve some administrative and economic reforms, his government had issues to make constitutional legitimacy. As stated in the Detroit Tribune, Prime Minister Diem's achievement up to now, however, should not be permitted to obscure the fact that the bigger battlefield lie ahead. That time is running short, and that there is no indication that the government in Saigon fully grasps the necessary for combating the propaganda of the communists in South Vietnam, as well as for eradicating dissentient political entities. This text reveals the powerful structural weaknesses of South Vietnam's political system, incorporating the disability to enable central as well as for eradicating dissentient political entities. This text reveals the powerful structural weaknesses of South Vietnam's political system, incorporating the disability to enable central authority in rural areas and the difficulty of stopping communist propaganda. In addition, the existence of rebel factions and the reliance on foreign troops stressed the Republic of Vietnam's weak legitimacy and dependence on the United States' help. U.S.'s participation during this time reveals broader Cold War issues over communist expansion in Southeast Asia. American policymakers saw Vietnam as an important front in the world battle against communism, warning that Soviet and Chinese influence to come across the region. The early 1960s, these different political pathways set the possibilities for the prolonged conflict. North Vietnam's unified socialist system allowed efficient mobilization and strategic planning, while South Vietnam's weak constitutional order and reliance on the United States left it fragile to both internal and external pressures. Illusions of stability in 1970s South Vietnam. Despite obvious signs of economic and military advancements, South Vietnam's balance in the 1970s was mostly an illusion. As reported by news reports, South Vietnam came close to growing rice to feed its population in 1973. And there was also the glittering prospect of offshore oil looming just over the horizon. That would really have to got the country economically, but it was all illusion. The South Vietnamese army in control of President Nguyen Van Thieu was highly reliant on American help to stay functional. The source also stated that the only way that President Thieu's army could be kept in place was through American aid. It had to be American aid, and this was the cross to which President Thieu was firmly nailed. Without continuous help from U.S., Thieu's army were weak to both internal and the structured North Vietnamese military, showcasing how Vietnam's political legitimacy relied more on external help rather than internal governments. Corruption, mismanagement, and the erosion of political legitimacy. The authority of Thieu's government was undermined by widespread corruption and poor management. In 1973, Senator Edward Kennedy stated that corruption pervades every level of government in South Vietnam, who will unlike conduct in any other part of the world, which majorly impaired both the war effort and the supply of aid. Reporters also mentioned that less than half of the supplies were reaching refugees and that 75% of the money allocated for resettlement of refugees was being misappropriated. This improper management destroyed confidence and trust in the government, which weakened social cohesion and halted South Vietnam from maintaining the basic functions of government, leaving it weak once U.S. military and economic support began to stop. Post-war constitutional foundations of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Constitutional politics had a major impact on and changing Vietnam's development during and after the Vietnam War. The Constitution of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam highlights the fundamentals and structures that had originated in the North prior to the unification governments, demonstrating how a unified constitutional system allowed social cohesion, economic planning, and political security. The Constitution directly states that the state of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam is a socialist state made by law and of the people, by the people and for the people. This stress on law and collective government mirrors the prior structure of North Vietnam, and where a single-party socialist structure enabled for centralized choice-making and coordination of economic, military, and social resources. In difference, South Vietnam's constitutional weakness halted its capability to implement policies, constantly making it reliant on external help from the United States and weak to internal factionalization. Constitutional sovereignty and the claim to national unity. The Constitution also features the rules of national unity and sovereignty, stating that the Socialist Republic of Vietnam is an independent and sovereign country, enjoying unity and integrity of territory. This rule connects to North Vietnam's success in presenting the war as a battle for national liberation and land integrity. By showcasing itself as the genuine representative of all Vietnamese people, the North adjusted ideological legitimacy with constitutional power. In contrast, South Vietnam, even with creating a formally republican system, tried to gain relative legitimacy, specifically among rural areas who often perceived the Saigon government as corrupt. The Constitution formalization of sovereignty reflects the everlasting historical focus on making a single, recognized authority able of mobilization society to a common goal, a lesson formed from the failures of South constitutional system. Foreign policy, sovereignty, and constitutional self-reliance. Opposing influences also merge with constitutional politics. North Vietnam's model highlights self-dependency and international alliances, a topic brought forward in the theme of constitution. The Constitution, the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, shall consistently implement its foreign policy of independence, self-reliance, and on the basis of a respect for each other's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. During the Vietnam War, this ideology allowed North Vietnam to argue foreign help and alliances without settling its political vision, while keeping domestic legitimacy. In opposition, South Vietnam's constitutional and political reliance on the United States diminished its sovereignty, making the view of the governments that authority gained more from foreign support than from the permission of the managed. This variation from internal legitimacy and external supporting emphasizes how constitutional structures and arrangements with ideology change the resilience and development of each state. In summary, the Vietnam demonstrates the pathway of a nation during war is extremely changed by constitutional politics, state legitimacy, and governments. North Vietnam unified socialist constitutional system enabled for aligned economic planning, social cohesion, and precise mobilization, powering its internal credibility and resilience against external nations. In contrast, South Vietnam's divided constitutional framework, amplified by corruption, internal divisions, and reliance on U.S. support, weakened its load to withhold authority, enforce policies, and trust among its citizens. The collapse of South Vietnam was less of a means of military defeat than a failure of constitutional and political principles. The post-war constitution of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam formalizes the teaching of this historical event, the merging of authority, the integration of state with society through citizen participation, the protection of sovereignty, and the integration of governments with the ideological principles central to national stability and resilience. Ultimately, the war reinforces that durable political legitimacy and effective constitutional governments as are important as military power in choosing the future of a nation. Thank you for listening, and hope you have a great day.